Let's talk about what an analyst career path could look like. One of the most common roles that a beginner employee would go into in analytics would be simply an analyst. That's a very common title. However, and I would encourage more companies to consider this. Some companies will take perhaps a person who doesn't have much experience in analytics but has a great interest in learning. And perhaps the company has learning resources for them available to help them eventually become an analyst. They might bring a person into a junior analyst role and start there. From there, a lot of analysts, perhaps 2, 3, 4, 5, or more years into their career, everyone's trajectory is different. It depends on the company a lot of times. Would eventually become a senior analyst. They've proven that they can conduct analysis in a rigorous way. They're independent. They are quick. They're efficient. They illustrate some of the soft skills, maybe a little bit of leadership and good project management, good communication, and so they are promoted to a senior analyst role. Now, in some cases, there's a role in between. Sometimes these are even interchangeable, called analyst 2. It's a little less common, but that can be especially a step towards senior analyst. Now, there's also this concept of a data engineer, and really the data engineer role, it's a different role. It has a different connotation than a senior analyst. When you think about a data engineer role, a lot of times it'd be on perhaps a similar pay scale to a senior analyst in my experience. But a data engineer is really focused on building data sets, especially for a data scientist, to ultimately take and build a model on top of that data set. So there are different roles. In fact, a lot of analysts and analyst twos and senior analysts, they build data sets as well. And sometimes the data scientists will both build the data set and build the model on top of it. Just a lot of different models you have out there for specialized roles versus more generalized roles. Eventually, you get into the data scientist role. Now, some people coming out of a program or with some experience in modeling and machine learning might go directly into a data scientist role, or again, a little less common, a junior data scientist role. Maybe you haven't built too many models at this point. You're still learning some things about data science, but the company believes that they can trust you as a junior data scientist and will help you learn from there to eventually get into a regular data scientist role and perhaps eventually a senior data scientist role. And at certain companies, this is quite rare, but especially at a technology company, there could be even a principal data scientist role. And the term principal almost has this concept of a leader in the industry. And so it's oftentimes not even an option at most companies, but at technology companies where the technology at that company is a critical part of how they make their money, they may indeed create a principal role, whether it's a data scientist role or another IT related role. And a lot of times that's on par with a director people leader role. So it's a very prestigious role if you earn a principal data scientist role. But in general, whether it's junior, regular, senior, principal data scientist role, we're talking about people that specialize in building statistical or machine learning models, maybe a neural network, a deep learning model. They specialize in building them, testing them, assessing them, monitoring them, all of the above. That is a data scientist. Now, eventually, you might move from an individual contributor role over to some sort of people management role. And oftentimes, an analyst might move into either a team lead role or a manager role. Usually, a manager is seen as a promotion compared to a team lead. And then from a manager role, you might move into a senior manager, a director, a senior director. Now, some companies will have a single analytics org. Other companies will have multiple analytics organizations, marketing, sales. And so the structure and what you're dedicated to, if you're a senior manager versus a director, it's going to really depend on the company. From there, especially if they're a data-driven company, there could be some vice president roles available. Sometimes you'll see assistant or senior or executive vice president role, and in some cases, even an officer level role that would report directly into the chief executive officer. So sometimes you'll see it as chief analytics officer or chief data officer. And that's a really impressive role to get to. It just has the connotation of being able to drive and handle all things data and analytics related at an organization. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of different roles available in the analytics career path.